And as you can see, now that I've completed the upgrades, I'm still cool. So that's pretty neat. Oops. And then we just flip it. Should be good. Anyway, I've been thinking about a bunch of different stuff while I've been playing this video game. One of the things that is kind of interesting to me is the idea of, you know, like karma yoga. And like, so the idea of karma yoga basically is that you're purifying yourself through actions and you're trying to divinize your actions rather than... Wait, let's see. So this is just, oh man, you're trying to divinize your actions, right? You're like, you're trying to do everything so that you can be like a better yogi and always be trying to do the right thing, and you know, trying to basically make yourself more divine through action. That's kind of the idea with karma yoga. Like, you're trying to, you know, make yourself unselfish, make yourself a good person by, like, you know, taking your actions and making them for other people, right? And it's like, well, that's pretty cool. And I was also thinking about the idea of ahimsa. Ahimsa is, shortly speaking, just nonviolence. The idea that what you're doing, you're not harming other beings or harming other things. You're, strictly speaking, always trying to do the right thing, and always trying to, you know, just not hurt anybody. Now, the thing I thought was interesting is that in my mind, I often apply karma yoga to even stuff in video games. Like, now this is less for like doing charity and things like that, but more doing like good things and trying to make what I do in a video game like dedicated to Ma. You know, like trying to, same like with my painting, I just painted some kitty cats. And I was, you know, thinking about Ma the whole time. I was thinking about, isn't it wonderful to think about how Ma has created all these different kitty cats? And, you know, how even these little tiny models are also, you know, part of Ma and all that good stuff. And I try to think about that while I'm playing video games as well. Not necessarily always the most successfully, I'll admit. Sometimes, you know, you get frustrated. Sometimes someone will do something in a video game that'll annoy you and make you wanna shout, "My hands up," and shout, you know, stuff like that. But I have been playing quite a bit of Resident Evil 4 lately. And one of the things about Resident Evil 4 is that I really like it. I really like, in particular, the gameplay. I like the way that the game makes me feel like I'm always doing something effective, and that I'm always doing something, you know, interesting with what I got, and that I'm always able to improvise with difficult situations, and I'm always able to get, you know, cool results basically from, you know, trying out all these different things. But what I was thinking about was that this game is definitely a game of violence. There's a lot of violence in this game. You can't really, you know, go around and be like, oh yes, I'm going to do a pacifist run. Although I have been looking at speedrunner strats, and often in speedruns it seems like the best way to do things is to just ignore an enemy and, you know, like try to move past them. Like, there's plenty of times when if you don't have to fight, you just shouldn't, and you should move on instead. And it's kind of interesting to think about that, right? Because I certainly think I practice ahimsa in my daily life. And I think that playing video games is not like a violent activity. I don't really think that, especially not one-to-one, playing violent video games translates into doing, you know, violence. Even though, as you just saw, that seemed like it was kind of violent, didn't it? I mean, it seemed like I'm hitting a guy in the face with bullets and... Oh! That's cool. If you hit reload, he does that. Why did he do that? Oh, also, yes, I have little cat ears. Isn't that good? I think it's good.
Someone has shown up their neighbors.
This isn't that much of showing up your neighbors, Leon. But I was thinking about these different things, and... Oh, wait, no, it's a pig in the middle. and then this baby. And I just definitely think that simply playing a video game is definitely not the same thing as doing violence. However, I was thinking about this partially just because, you know, I don't necessarily think that while playing a violent video game, you're necessarily like poisoning yourself or doing things you shouldn't be doing. I do. Oh, wait, no, you know what it is? I think I need to go this way. There we go. I also don't necessarily think that there's no effect. I think that if you spend too much time dwelling in negativity and things like that, I think that it can really have an effect on you. And if you go ahead, ow! And if you go ahead and are always doing things like always paying attention to something like Warhammer, which is a very negative, daddy, always paying attention to negative things like that, I think it can have a very negative effect on your mental health. Not necessarily in the thing that you're going to be violent. I don't think that that's the case. I've done a bit of research. I'm not going to pretend I've done like all the research in the world, but I've done a bit of research on this, and as far as I can tell, there's nothing to indicate that simply playing some violent video games or playing games that have violence in them is going to make someone act out more violently or act out differently. I have read a little bit that would... Puppy! Oh, I got you, buddy. Don't worry. Catboy Leon is here to save. Catboy Mobster Leon. There you go. But there's nothing necessarily, as far as I can tell, to indicate that like it's going to likely lead to violence. However, there is some, I guess there's like a little bit of evidence that it can reinforce negative traits if someone already has certain negative traits. But is that the same thing? I don't really think so. I still think that I practice ahimsa, even though I play violent video games. And, you know, some of you might be saying, well, of course, Cat. Who would even say such a thing? Who would even say that just by playing a violent video game, you're necessarily doing violence? It's like, well, very few people would straight up say that. However, I have met people who would imply that playing any video game or doing anything other than strict meditation and stuff like that is just bad for your spiritual practice. I think that there's like a lot of things like a healthy balance, and that we should be able to, you know, play around, enjoy. I never picked up all this gold from earlier. That's cool. Hey, I was looking at the cool thing. You're not supposed to be distracting me while I'm looking at the cool thing, man. Hey! 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 There we go. But you know, I'm always trying to get closer to God and always trying to do more things. Ow. That do me better in God land, you know? That get you better, like get your better karma, if you want to talk about it from that perspective, although I'm not particularly interested in the idea of just straight karma. I think that karma kind of falls apart a little bit once you start getting deeper into Advaita Vedanta or the deeper levels of Tantra and stuff like that. I think regular old karma starts to sort of fall apart as an explanation for a lot of things. But, you know, hey, it is what it is. But that does beg the question. Since I am trying to get better, and I'm always trying to do better things for myself and my spiritual journey, should I be engaging in this activity? Is this a bad activity to engage in? And I'm going to say that I think it's a bit more complicated than some people want to make it out to be. I think that if you really examine it, what we really see is that there is definitely times in which it's not really great to... I really like the purple. Does the purple look better with the red? Yeah, actually, here, why don't we do that, and then we can do... There you go. Different colors. I don't think... I kind of like that. I like that. But yes, that does definitely beg the question whether or not it's good and things like that. But for me personally, I don't know. I just offer everything to Ma. I play Warhammer. Warhammer is based on violence and war and destruction and all this stuff. But to me, it seems like if we're just looking at the action and if we're just looking at what the intention is, the intention of playing something like Warhammer, ultimately it's a game. It's a game that, you know, yes, it is playing out violence in some sense, but it's not really that important that it's playing out a bit of violence. I don't think it changes very much. I'm not gonna. Oh, I can buy another first aid spray. Why not? Why not just stock up on a bunch of first aid sprays that I'm not even gonna use? Oops. Let's see here. Well, we don't. No, wait. I'm sorry. We want this one to stay. We want to store this one, and then we're gonna store this one, and then we're gonna store this one. I wish I could store the handgun ammo because I want to use the red 9 later, but apparently can't. So that's kind of lame. So, but you also got to consider this on like your own personal level, right? Like, is it good for me personally? And with a lot of these things, I think that's really where we gotta ask the question, right? Is like we can ask questions about like, well, is it good to play violent video games if you're trying to, you know, practice non-violence? Because, you know, Jesus talks about that in the Sermon on the Mount, like the whole idea of like, you know, you're guilty of murder, basically. Well, not really guilty of murder, but I say unto you that to hate your brother in your heart is to commit murder, basically. And yeah, I know I kind of butchered that line, but I think people know the verse I'm talking about and things like that. I think ultimately that comes down to a personal decision here. Part of the reason I was taking a break from things like Warhammer and things like Infinity is because I found that it did seem to be having a negative impact. In Infinity, for one reason or another, I get really competitive. That's not something I do in almost any other game. I don't really know what exactly it is, but I get competitive and I would get frustrated when I was losing. And honestly, I would get kind of frustrated if I was winning and I didn't do as good as I wanted to. And to be perfectly honest, it wasn't also just competitive. Sometimes it's just kind of boring. There's something about a game, if it goes perfectly according to plan, which is also kind of boring. Ultimately, I found that it was inspiring more negative feelings in me than positive ones. I got over the competitiveness to a certain degree, and I realized, okay, I feel like I can improve myself, and I don't need to play this game anymore. I think I can have more positive experiences playing other things. With Warhammer, it was that I play primarily on TTS, and part of it was that I had a fantasy of what my orcs or my chaos boys or whatever were capable of, and sometimes when you would play, because of how unbalanced things are and how like the game's it's a dice game, right? So sometimes silly things happen, you know. Because there's silly things that can happen, and you're not necessarily always going to be doing what you want. And sometimes it's like, oh, my orcs are going to epically charge in, but on your charge roll you get a 1, or you get 2 1s instead of like and you'll like, oh, I only need 4, but I literally got 2 1s. You know, stuff like that. Silly stuff can happen. But, for me, the reason I was playing Warhammer on the tabletop is because I have these fantasies in my head. These fantasies of, like, my orcs doing a... Was that a Michael Jackson? Did he do a Michael Jackson move there? Oh, man, that's so funny. Wait, here. Oh, no, be careful. There's a cat boy. The cat boy is coming. He's going to kill you. Be careful. The cat boy killed you. Oh, no, he's dancing. Oh, it interrupted the animation. Come on, that's not good. But like because the fantasy I would have would sometimes just not happen because of the way the rules are written, or because maybe the unit I want to bring is not actually the most powerful. Stop trying to get me on fire. I'm trying to dance, have a good time. Yeah. Oh, did that hit me from there? I guess it did. And sometimes you gotta, you know, because it's a game, sometimes that fantasy of having the cool orc, or, you know, like, oh, this is my freebooters captain who's just, you know, gonna do a bunch of shooting and stuff, and then like he'll do like 20 shots of shooting and he doesn't manage to hit anything, you know. But like I said, that's part of the game. But I would find that sometimes I would get frustrated with that, and I ended up taking breaks, particularly when I brought an army that was just fun. And the problem was that the first person I played against, I accidentally brought an illegal list. They brought Chaos Knights, and it seems like it could have been fun, but I never bring battle wagons. So battle wagons have this thing where if you put a cannon on them, it reduces their carrying capacity to 12 instead of 20. I had 20 flash kits in this battle wagon because I thought it was funny. Just drive by Daka. It's not very good shooting. There's just a lot of it. Fun. I think it's fun. And I've only tried it out a couple times, and I thought it was pretty neat. But the thing... Wait, what? No. There we go. But the thing was... I didn't realize that because I almost never bring a battle wagon. And in 10th edition, you basically just throw all your upgrades onto something. So there are all these upgrades onto the thing. Then my opponent pointed out, we put Ard case on there, so it doesn't have firing deck anymore. I'm like, oh, well, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't realize that was a thing. He's like, okay, that's fine. We reduced it because that puts hard case puts the toughness up to 12. Then I realized I fucked up. I was like, okay, let's take that back. And then so now it's at 10. That's fine. But then the kill cannon also makes it so that now the carrying capacity is only at 12 instead of 20. So I can't have all 20 of my flash kits in there. And that kind of would have changed the game enough that I was like, okay, I think we should... I'm sorry, but we're going to cancel it. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't realize that I brought a technically illegal list. So then I felt kind of bad about that, but not like super bad. I was like, okay, well, there's just a little mistake. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't really want to play Knights anyway. Knights are an army that I just find kind of boring. I don't know. I have this thing. I just don't like super tall or super wide armies. Something a little bit in between is usually the most fun. So it's not just like one thing. Then the next person I played against, they played Imperial Knights. I brought a similar but not exactly the same list. And two things happened there. A, I didn't really like that the list they brought kind of looked like it was a tournament list. I don't know for sure. They just kept talking about, well, these are the only thing that are good now. Well, doesn't it suck that like your orcs are kind of bad now if you don't take this, this, and this. I was like, I don't know. I don't pay attention to tournaments. Whatever. But then as they were playing along, he kind of kept telling me like what to do and started telling me like, oh, this is how you're supposed to do this. And I was under the impression that in 10th, you cannot... Okay, here, we'll just do this. That was easier. I was under the impression in 10th, you couldn't charge through, or charge an attack through walls like you could in 9th edition. Apparently that wasn't the case. There's just a lot of little things, and like, you know, I'm trying to just play a casual game, and by having someone constantly telling me what to do and how to do it and better ways to do things, and I know that in a lot of cases they're just trying to help, but I get really irritated when people sit there and just tell me what to do. I hate it. I especially if like I tell you that I want to make this choice and you start doing that thing where it's like, are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? No, let me make my choice. I'm big cat. Well, actually, I'm not that big. I'm 3 foot tall cat, but still, let me make a choice. So I was getting frustrated with them, and about halfway through the game, I kind of lost my temper. I was like, dude, stop telling me what to do. And you know, should I have gotten mad at him? No, probably not. I probably should have just, as my friend pointed out, I should have just like basically stepped back and just, you know, been like, okay, I'm just, you know, if it gets bad enough, you can say, hey, I just need to take a quick break 1 second. Or, you know, you can, if you're really not having fun, you can basically, I think if you're having a bad time, it's okay to say, I don't want to continue to play. I think that's okay, and you can concede. Now, I didn't concede, but I was just getting frustrated, and that also led me to going, okay, I definitely need to take a break. Basically, although I really enjoy Warhammer, people play Warhammer for different reasons, and I realized that I wasn't having a great time with a lot of folks I was playing against. A lot of people I was playing against, it just kind of seemed like I was having kind of a negative reaction, where a lot of times it wasn't like anger or anything, it was just kind of getting impatient, because some people would take a long time to play. And some people, if you really like the person, I find that it's a lot easier to be like, hey, you know, just speed up a little bit. But if it's like, but like for a lot of people, they're just kind of randoms and you're trying to be nice. But I just want to see. Very good. But you know, like, I was having this moment where I'm like, okay, this is a negative reaction to this game. I'm getting impatient at people. Sometimes I'm kind of frustrated. Sometimes I was more frustrated with the way the game was played rather than like, a lot of times it was just like, there are just silly little things in Warhammer. But if you play with a bunch of people that you're not always playing with, you know, you're playing with randoms, there's a lot of little different rule interpretations that can kind of affect the way you, hey, ow, sir. That can really affect like the way you get into the game and stuff like that. And that's when I realized, okay, this is actually probably a good example of what I was talking about. Not necessarily the ahimsa, but watching out for your mental health. So if I see that I'm playing a game and I'm getting frustrated a lot with it, or I'm getting kind of angry at it, or maybe I'm getting really competitive in a game like I did with Infinity, it's like, okay, it's probably best to not continue to play that game, or to see if you can overcome your competitiveness. And I overcame the competitiveness to a certain degree, but then I found that I just still wasn't really having fun with it, so I just kind of... Wait, where is it? Okay, here, I'll do this one. Man, I like how much that one kicks. It's fun. I feel like I'm shooting like a cannon. Like I have to aim it like artillery. And you know, there was this moment of like, okay, so oh, armor took that. Thank you, armor. Of kind of taking a break from it and realizing, hey. And you know, also trying to kind of ask the question, do I get more out of my time if I'm not doing this? Is it bad for me? Is this breeding negativity in me? You know, what we got? And you know, it's sometimes good to examine those sorts of things, and it's like, okay, it's a video game, or it's a tabletop game, it's harmless. It's like, well, is it harmless for your mental health? Like, one of the reasons I stopped going to one of the D&D games I was in is because what I wanted out of the game and what the group wanted out of the game were two very different things. I wanted to really show off the characters we made and to role play and to do that sort of thing, and the people I was playing with, they kind of wanted to, it seemed like they were much more interested in, like, hello. No, that's a bass. That's not a snake. I heard snake noises. There's a snake. I think either way, whatever I hit with that is just going to explode, right? What caliber is this? But, and I realized that I wasn't quite enjoying myself. But a lot of the other people were. They were having a great time. So sometimes you gotta also ask the question, well, okay, am I the Debbie Downer? Am I the one that's making this less fun? Now, of course, in the D&D case, I wasn't like mad at anybody. It was just like, we want different things out of this game. I'm not having as much fun as these guys. Why not let them have their fun? And you know, you gotta think about that stuff. And when you think about it on the spiritual path, for me personally, I'm trying to do this karma yoga stuff. I'm trying to make it so that every action I do, even playing a silly video game, is, you know, dedicated to Ma. I'm always thinking about Ma. I'm always trying to get closer to Ma Kali, and always trying to, you know, have like,
This is what I'm talking about.
is it what you're talking about, Leon? Were you talking? I don't remember you talking. You know, yeah, whoa, 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 yeah. I think that's pretty cool. And trying to figure out, you know, what's good and what's bad for us. And if I'm trying to, you know, divinize my actions as much as I can, if I'm trying to dedicate even the silly stuff like playing a video game to mock Ollie, you know, I can't be sitting here. Do I have? I do have 3 snake. There's one more around here. You know, if I'm getting frustrated and angry, you know, I don't necessarily want to dedicate that anger to mock Ollie. Although what I would do is, you know, give her my anger anyway, like offer it up and be like, hey, this is my anger. I don't want it anymore. Please take it. And, you know, sometimes during the game that would help and I would be less frustrated with whatever was going on. But then you know, usually, actually, it pretty much always helped. I guess a better way to phrase it was that sometimes it made me question what I was doing. Why was I playing this game that is making me frustrated, rather than, you know, doing something that's easier to, you know, dedicate to Ma, that I can give to Ma without having to like pause and go, hey, please take my anger or anything like that. That seems to me like it's a much better option. And I think that sometimes we're like, well, you know, we can't possibly be getting frustrated or having a negative effect from a video game or like a tabletop game or something like that. That's silly. And it's like, well, it's not silly, because, you know, we all have different things that kind of, you know, that give us these feelings and make us, you know, frustrated or happy or sad or things like that. You know, like people cry during video games. People cry during The Walking Dead, for instance, at the end of the first season there. People cry. Or, you know, people have strong emotional reactions to some games, and, you know, sometimes they don't have any reaction to others. And you gotta take all that into consideration. You know, you are an individual, and you have, I mean, technically we're all connected to Ma, but you have, you know, things that might bother you, things that might make you kind of feel bad. You know, you might have things that, you know, kind of make you feel ways that you don't quite understand. Like maybe you're like me and you watch a bunch of horror movies, but then maybe you'll have a horror movie that really it's just kind of silly and you just laughing at, and then another one that gives you a negative reaction. And of course, I'm not suggesting just like stop your hobbies, and if it feels bad, never do it again. But, you know, examine like why you're doing what you're doing, and, you know, is it helping? Is it hindering? Is it, maybe it's not really doing anything? You know, take your time and examine your actions, because it's not just stuff that is like obviously bad, like smoking or drinking or stuff like that can be bad for you and bad for your spiritual health. There's plenty. Oh wait, no, I already got this one here. I'm trying to remember. There's like one more that's in, because I think I have. Oh wait a minute. I think I have a map, don't I? Oh, I don't have the map that shows the thingies. That's fine. I don't need it. Because I know where one of the other ones is. I'm just trying to remember where this last one is. Oh, wait. I know. I'm clever Leon. Clever cat Leon. Meow. But, you know, take time and examine what you're doing. Examine why you're doing it. Examine what feelings it's invoking in you. And, you know, be willing to also sit there with those feelings and say sometimes, you know, those feelings are not, like, correct. Sometimes they're just silly billy stuff that just, you know, you don't know why it upsets you, but it does. Or maybe you have a personal past with something in particular that is upsetting you, that for like your average D&D person or your average Warhammer person or your average whatever, it just doesn't really bug them. And, you know, they're just kind of sitting there like, oh, well, this is just perfectly normal. And, you know, understand that people can have different reactions to different things. Nobody's reaction is necessarily speaking invalid in this case. There we go. And then there's one more, you know, and we should understand that just because we feel a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that, A, you know, we don't got to cling to those feelings. And I've gotten really good over the years about being able to identify when I'm getting upset and being able to stop my upsetty spaghetti. Not all the time, obviously. Like I said, I got kind of mad at that one guy who was playing Warhammer with, and then afterwards, like, I did get upset with him, but, like, you know, afterwards I was like, well, you know, it was for a silly reason and we should definitely watch that in the future. Obviously Catte's not perfect, but you don't got to be perfect. It's all about improving yourself and being a little bit better one step at a time, rather than, you know, there we go, rather than only having one reaction and always doing that one reaction, or you know. And this is also, like I said, not another thing to say, like, hey, if you have even a slight negative feeling towards something that you have going on. Let's see here. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take this. And I'm gonna take this. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit and, you know, share with you guys some of the thoughts that were going through my big cat noggin. I think that we should all take time to examine our actions and think about, like, you know, you may think that things are harmless and you may think that they're not affecting you, but, you know, you have these different reactions to different things. If you're playing a video game and you're finding that you're getting upset at the video game a lot, I personally think that's a good time to kind of, you know, maybe chill out with that particular game, whatever it is, and kind of maybe take a break and kind of consider your options and consider why something makes you feel a certain way, all that good stuff. And yeah, anyway, that's all I wanted to say for right now, and hopefully you guys find that interesting. And I just want to say, I love you, God loves you, bye, I love you, bye, and I'll see you next time after I kill fish, evil lizards. Bye.